and is actually 1078 in the SpaceX fleet. So different booster history. Let's go ahead and give you the lowdown on this particular launch vehicle as we get closer to seeing it fly, coming up in just about 13 minutes. This booster began with a crew mission, that being the 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut of the Crew 6 flight up to the International Space Station that lifted off on March 2nd, 2023. This, of course, as the name suggests, was SpaceX's 6th crew rotation mission to the ISS. That was followed up by a launch for Luxembourg-based company SES. Just saw one of those recently. This particular one was a pair of the Boeing-built O3B mPOWER satellites, numbers 3 and 4, launching on April 28th. That was followed by a quartet of Starlink missions, Starlink 6-4 on June 4th, 6-8 on August 7th, 6-16 on September 16th, 6-31 on December 3rd. Rolling on into this year, a national security mission for the U.S. Space Force, that is USSF 124 on Valentine's Day, followed up by 3 more Starlink missions, 6-46 on March 25th, 6-53 on April 23rd, and most recently for this booster, 6-60 back on May 28th. That was just 26 days ago. And so assuming everything continues to move well with this mission, this will be the fastest turnaround for this particular booster at just 26 days. We're currently T-minus 11 minutes, 22 seconds and counting from this booster, making its 11th flight so far. Weather continues to track in a good direction on this mission, and so as Stephen is reminding me in my ear, assuming that things continue to progress well and we get a liftoff just under 11 minutes, this will become the fastest turnaround of this particular launch pad for SpaceX as well, at 2 days, 19 hours, and 40 minutes. Of course, SpaceX is continuing to push towards a more airport-like environment for its launch pads and with its Falcon family of rockets. So it is taking lessons learned forward from each mission on how to make sure its launch infrastructure is able to support a rapid launch cadence, and has been continuing to decrease the turnaround time for its pads from a while ago, from months down to weeks, down to days. And I'm sure at some point they'll figure out how to turn around into hours. And I'll probably have much more gray hair at that point. As we're cruising into the final 9.5 minutes of the count, let's go ahead and talk about that workhorse vehicle for SpaceX. Of course, the Falcon 9 rocket, standing at 70 meters or 229 feet in height, with a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Most of that made up by the first stage, the bottom 2/3 of the rocket, the base of which you see the 9 Merlin engines, hence the name, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs that are used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Again, they are using a shortfall of gravitas today to catch this booster. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In that image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart towards the drone ship. The top of the inner stage are three mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. That first stage main engine cutoff. High pressure helium is used to release those latches before pneumatic pushers ensure clean separation. The second stage engine nozzle is also housed safely inside the interstage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 is powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. Produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight, placing the 22 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same prop mix as the first stage, that being RP1 and LOX. Following Starlink satellite deployment, there will be a third and final burn to deorbit the upper stage, push it back through the atmosphere where it will burn up to help eliminate the risk of any unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the rocket are the payload fairings. These fairing halves are made up of a carbon composite material standing 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The fairing halves will be recovered a little further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship, shortfall of gravitas. They gently splash down under parachutes and will be scooped up by one of the recovery vessels and brought back into Port Canaveral, where they will be offloaded, brought to Cape Canaveral Space Force Station for assessment, refurbishment, and eventually put back into service. Again, SpaceX is looking to make sure their fairing halves are able to support up to 40 missions, as well as the boosters. Also, up to 40 flights is the goal. We're now T minus 6 minutes, 22 seconds and counting. At this point, SpaceX has begun the engine chill down sequence. It involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbopumps, helping to protect those from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. Now at T minus 5 minutes, 43 seconds and counting. Before we hit the strong back retract sequence coming up in just about a minute, want to first off thank the more than 12,000 of you who are joining us live this afternoon. If you haven't already, we greatly appreciate it if you would hit that like button for us. It allows the YouTube algorithm to see the engagement here and bring some more folks into this live coverage. It's always great to give people the opportunity to see a launch live if they're not busy with other things going on in their life. And we appreciate your support in helping us to do just that. As promised before, want to talk about the launch trajectory now that we have a few more folks joining with us live. Let you know where this Falcon 9 is going once it leaves the pad. As is the case with seemingly all the missions heading up to the 10th shell of the Starlink constellation. Once this booster leaves the pad, which is currently at Space Launch Complex 40, it will fly in a northeasterly trajectory along the coast of the United States. So for folks in northern Florida, northeast Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, hopefully things aren't too cloudy where you are and you can potentially see this Falcon 9 as it makes its climb uphill. First stage booster, tail number B1078, will land on the SpaceX drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas.
Strong back retract has started.
As you heard that call out from SpaceX, we are now getting both mission audio as well as pad views of that Falcon 9 over at Slick 40. A little better context to the cloud cover from the perspective of the pad here. It's now under 4 minutes to the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket. You can see the clamp arms underneath the payload fairings have opened up, and the strong back will recline about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Taking a quick look at the live chat here. I want to thank a few more folks for your support this afternoon. Our thanks to T. McGee with another $5 super chat, saying if tonight's SoCal launches on time, San Diego's SeaWorld fireworks will be going off at 8:50. Oh, that could be very cool. Hopefully, someone will get a nice shot combining the two of those events. Love to see that photo. Actually, that'd be a really cool video. So if anyone has plans to go to SeaWorld, let me know if you're able to capture that. Tag us, if you will, on X or Threads, just at Spaceflight Now. Also want to thank channel member Jeff Groves for being with us, marking 7 months now. Glad to still have you with us, sir. Who says, my thanks to
Stage
Gwen
1,
Shotwell,
launch load complete.
who makes everything at SpaceX possible. Such a super person. And to SG for a $5 super chat. Good to see you this afternoon, SG. As you just heard, the Falcon 9 first stage LOX tank is now full. Last call out, we're waiting as far as prop load is concerned. Will come up in now less than 30 seconds as they're completing the loading of liquid oxygen on the Falcon 9's second stage.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
We're now T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds and counting, seeing the ground gas closeouts here as SpaceX is on the cusp of its 45th Starlink mission of the year. This will also be SpaceX's 63rd
Ground gas closeout.
Falcon launch. Now a minute away from the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. Weather continues to track well in support of a launch, coming up in now 52 seconds.
Falcon 9 is
Standing by for the launch director to give their go for launch.
Go for launch.
And with that call, we are now less than 30 seconds away from the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket, the Starlink 10-2 mission. 20 seconds. 15 seconds. And here we go in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 10-2 mission. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Falcon 9 now soaring into the clouds above Florida's Space Coast. A little more than 20 seconds into flight. Let's listen to the roar of those 9 Merlin 1D engines. Minute into the flight, Falcon 9 now traveling faster than the speed of sound and passing through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. still see a nice bit of shadow on the ocean there, just to the right of the Falcon 9 rocket from this vantage point. Little temporary marker of its climb uphill. Now, a little more than 2 minutes into flight, we're coming up on a few different events in fairly rapid succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff or MECO at about T plus 2 minutes, 24 seconds. That'll be followed 4 seconds later by stage separation, and then second stage engine start SES1 at T plus 2 minutes, 35 seconds. The payload fairings will be jettisoned just before the 3-minute mark. So in real time, we've hit MECO and stage separation. We'll see those events coming in on the SpaceX feed momentarily. All good callouts from SpaceX. You've seen those events here on your screen. Hypersonic grid fins now being deployed on the Falcon 9's first stage. It's a little. And there go the payload fairings, exposing the 22 Starlink satellites for the first time on this mission. And you can see one of those fairing halves falling away back down to Earth, where we'll gently splash down to the Atlantic Ocean under support of a parachute system. A little more than 3.5 minutes into flight. Coming up, the next event will be the start of the first stage entry burn. That picks up at about T plus 6 minutes, 9 seconds, lasting about 24 seconds in total. And as confirmed by SpaceX in the last couple of seconds here, I mentioned they don't often talk about the milestones of their payload fairings. However, according to them, they say today's mission marks our first 20th flight of a fairing half. So congratulations to SpaceX on reaching 20 flights with at least one half of the payload fairings that we just saw fly moments ago, now making its way back to the Atlantic Ocean. Now a little more than 5 minutes into flight. Those little bursts that you're seeing in between the two grid fins here on your screen, those are the cold gas thrusters. They help adjust the attitude of the Falcon 9 first stage, or its orientation, as it begins to make its way back down towards the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas. So you can see we're well past the point of its apogee. As the altitude meter continues to tick down. Soon we'll see the speedometer begin to plummet as well once that entry burn begins, essentially slamming on the brakes as this booster heads down towards the drone ship. Start of that burn coming up in now less than 10 seconds in real time. What you're looking for, though, is on the
Those
SpaceX
vehicles continue
count.
to follow a nominal trajectory.
Good call out from SpaceX as both the first and second stage of the Falcon 9 continuing to follow along their intended flight paths.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
You can see the start of that entry burn. Again, this lasting about 24 seconds in total. that other call out for the flight termination system,
Stage 1
FTS,
entry burn shutdown.
safed. That FTS no longer needed at this stage in flight. Now, a little more than 7 minutes into this mission, coming up next will be the first stage landing burn beginning. It's coming up at T plus 7 minutes and 53 seconds. Now T plus 7 minutes, 44
Stage
seconds
1 transonic.
counting. Falcon 9 now slowing to below the speed of sound as it continues to make its way towards the drone ship. Less than 6 kilometers above the ocean surface now.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
That landing burn now underway. Get some views from the drone ship momentarily.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
And for an 11th time, you can see booster 1078 has safely touched down on the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Impact shutdown.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And with some good callouts by SpaceX, the upper stage now in a parking orbit where we'll coast until T plus 43 minutes and 50 seconds. There will be a brief 2-second burn, which will set up the Starlink satellites to be deployed at T plus 52 minutes and 44 seconds. And following some challenges, the last time they tried to launch this mission back on the 14th, SpaceX now well on their way through deploying the satellites on the Starlink 10-2 mission. Something I'm sure they're glad to have mostly behind them now at this point. Obviously, the satellites still need to be deployed, but the 1078 was able to do its job, and we'll continue to keep our eyes open to see at what point they're able to bring the 1073 back into service. Taking a look at the live chat real quick, want to thank one of our wonderful channel members, Beverly Knuckles, for $5 super chat and noting that this was Beverly's first daylight launch. Beautiful. That's wonderful, Beverly. Glad you got to see that for yourself today. Night launches are spectacular, but it's always very cool when you get to see one of these rockets take off in the daylight. And with a good liftoff and a good landing of the first stage booster, continue to keep your eyes on the transporter erector, and that'll be coming back up into a vertical position as we're talking about our mission stats as they currently stand. Let's go ahead and run through these. This was the 11th flight of Falcon 9 booster 1078 in the SpaceX fleet. This marked the 348th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 63rd Falcon 9 launch of this year. This was SpaceX's 291st Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was SpaceX's 65th launch of this year so far, including the two flight tests of its Starship vehicle from down at Starbase in southern Texas. This was the 116th orbital launch for SpaceX within the last 365 days. This was the 193rd for them from Pad 40 and the 248th overall orbital launch from this pad to date. Moving on to the bar chart, this is where SpaceX stands so far on the year. Now well past the total number of launches for 2022 and making good inroads towards their goal of 148 missions by close of 2024. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 85th landing on the drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. Actually, that is a typo. This was the 75th landing for ASOG. 75th. This was also the 252nd SpaceX drone ship landing and the 321st to date on a drone ship, or excuse me, on all booster landings. It includes land landings at LZ-1, LZ-2 here in Florida, as well as LZ-4 over in California. Finally, to some industry stats. This was the 46th orbital launch from Florida this year, the 67th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 74th launch from U.S. rocket company, the 121st orbital launch from around the world, including 3 launch mishaps. Here's where our pie chart currently stands as we wrap up this mission this afternoon. As a reminder, you can always tune into our 24-hour live stream, Launchpad Live, where we've got views of Pad 39A, among others. Again, we are tracking the rollout of the Falcon Heavy rocket in support of the NASA and NOAA GOES-U satellite. Geostationary satellite, an important piece of our country's ability to forecast the weather as well as track some climate impacts. So going to have a lot more to say about this mission in the next couple of days as NASA and SpaceX continue to target at this point a liftoff on Tuesday, the 25th at 5:16 p.m. Eastern. So we'll have extensive live launch coverage on that day. So look forward to that. And again, vehicle is expected to roll out sometime likely this evening or tomorrow morning. So check out Launchpad Live for updates on that live as it happens. We'll also be back in action for live launch coverage this evening from Vandenberg Space Force Base, tracking the launch of that Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 9-2 mission. We'll have much more on the vehicle, the booster history, the payload, all that jazz. Again, live launch coverage begins 30 minutes prior to liftoff. SpaceX continues to target that liftoff at 8:45 p.m. Pacific. Last but not least, want to thank a few more folks who hit it at the buzzer with supporting our coverage this afternoon. Thanks to Fletcher Boy for, as he says, a quick $5. See y'all tonight. See you then, Fletcher. And to Calvin Lindbergh, $5 super chat as well, saying thank you. Saw a night launch from a cruise ship back in November of 2023, which he says was amazing. That is always good to hear. Haven't seen a launch from a cruise ship myself. Maybe I'll need to add that to my own personal bucket list at some point down the road. Most cruise ships, or I shouldn't say most cruise ships, a number of cruise ships have actually added Starlink internet service to their vessels. Carnival has actually completed outfitting all of its cruise ships with Starlink internet service. So, one of a number that has really committed to going in this route as far as providing its passengers with that level of satellite internet. Of course, other cruise ships have different options and have opted for different things, but ties into this mission. So just leave you with that little nugget. With that, we'll go ahead and thank the folks that helped make our coverage possible today. First of all, our thanks to our wonderful moderators in the live chat. I see Callistia Lee appears to be holding it down for us today. So thanks, Callistia. Really appreciate the hard work. Also want to thank our friend Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions, helping us track the rocket. A little bit tricky given the level of cloud cover. Our thanks as well to our launch photographers, Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane. Got some great shots of the rocket, and you can check those out on X, only known as Twitter. Have those up there very shortly. Also want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. And last but not least, Dialogue Gaming with a last-minute super chat saying, good morning. What if you've ever seen anything strange during a launch like a UFO or UAP? I'm going to say I haven't. Not sure about the other fellas, but strangest thing that I've seen is just the rocket itself going up. I can't say I've seen an alien, but or a UAP. But keep your eyes to the skies. You never know what you may see someday. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, we hope you keep your eyes to our channel. Be sure to subscribe to Spaceflight Now if you haven't already. Again, click that bell icon so you get notified when we start our live launch coverage opportunities. Next one coming up tonight, 30 minutes ahead of Starlink 9-2. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, be good to yourselves, be good to others. See that strong back is upright and getting ready to support the next mission from the Cape. And until next time, folks, we will see you later. Bye-bye.